When quiet starts to matter more. Most mornings, I wake up before the sun. The house is still, except for the soft creak of the old floorboards and the hum of the heater kicking on. I wrap the same flannel robe around my faded, but familiar, and make a cup of coffee. Nothing fancy, just black. I sit in my worn chair by the window, the one that sinks a little on the left side, and watch the first light filter through the blinds. The street outside is quiet, just a paper landing on a neighbor's porch and the distant sound of a car engine starting up. There's comfort in this routine. Nothing urgent, no rush. I used to live in the rushwork deadlines, school pickups, weekend barbecues, holiday plans. A phone that never stopped ringing. Life was full of voices, footsteps, movement. I used to think that meant I was living it well. But something's shifted. Maybe it's age. Maybe it's just time doing what time does, showing you what really matters. By quietly stripping away what doesn't. I don't go out as much now. I say no more often. I don't feel guilty for staying in with a book or sitting quietly with my own thoughts. There's peace in choosing what fills your day, and more importantly, what doesn't. I haven't lost my love for people. I've just started being more careful with where my energy goes. Not every connection is meant to last, and not every conversation needs to happen. These days, I find myself drawn to stillness, to fewer words, to presence without performance. And maybe that's where it begins to shift. When you stop chasing life and let it come sit beside you for a while. Let me tell you what I've noticed since. 1. The weight and worth of time. These days, I move slower, not just because my knees creak or my back stiffens after a night's sleep, but because I no longer feel the need to rush. Time feels different now. Not heavier, exactly. Just more real, more visible. Like steam rising from a mug of black coffee. It's here, then gone. I sit by the window most mornings, same chair I've had for over 30 years. Its arms worn smooth from use. The sun creeps in across the kitchen floor, catching the edge of the old linoleum. Outside, a squirrel scrambles along the fence, and the neighbor's wind chimes stir faintly in the breeze. When I was younger, time felt endless. I filled it without thinking. I'd talk on the phone for hours, get caught up in errands that didn't matter, say yes to every invitation. Back then, I thought being busy meant being needed, and being needed meant being loved. It's taken me a long time to untangle that. Now, I watch the minutes instead of spending them. I choose carefully. I no longer feel obligated to be everywhere or with everyone. I still enjoy good company, but I don't crave a full room the way I used to. I'd rather have one honest conversation than a dozen small ones filled with noise and no meaning. That's not loneliness, it's clarity. Time has taught me to pare things down. I don't carry every memory or every regret the way I once did. I've let some of them fall away like old coats that no longer fit. There's comfort in traveling lighter. I've also learned that not everything needs to be said. Not every silence needs to be filled. Some of the best parts of my day are quiet sound of a spoon stirring in a cup, the rustle of newspaper pages, the feel of warm socks on cold feet. I used to feel guilty for wanting stillness, for choosing to stay home while others gathered, for letting calls go unanswered if I didn't have the energy. I don't anymore. Protecting my time doesn't make me unkind. It means I finally understand how rare and fragile it really is. There's a kind of peace that comes from knowing what you won't get back and choosing, gently, not to waste what's left. I'm not afraid of time running out. I'm just more careful now with how I use it. And I've found that, in this slower way of living, I notice things I used to miss. The way the light changes on the walls throughout the day, the exact moment the house turns quiet at night, the weight of a hand resting on mine, even if it's only in memory. That's what time gives you if you let it. Not more of itself, but a better way to hold what's. 2. When relationships begin to fade. There's a photograph on the hallway shelf and an old friend. Arms around each other at a 4th of July picnic. Paper plates in our hands. Kids running behind us in the background. I haven't spoken to him in over a decade. Not because of a fight, just life. Things change. People drift. And for a long time, I carried guilt about that, like maybe I should have tried harder to keep us close. But now, I think some relationships aren't meant to go the full distance. They show up, serve a purpose, and when their season ends, they quietly let go. I used to fill my days with people corkers, neighbors, distant cousins. I remembered birthdays, sent cards, showed up for everything. It felt important to keep the web intact, to not let anyone slip away. But over time, I started to notice how tired I was. Not from age, but from effort. It takes a lot to hold up relationships that no longer hold you back. I've learned that not every connection is supposed to last forever. That's not bitterness, it's clarity. Some people were part of a chapter, not the whole story. They mattered then. They shaped who I was in those moments. And even though they're not here now, I still carry what we had. These days, I keep a smaller circle. The kind of people who don't need an explanation if I don't answer the phone right away. The kind who show up when it counts, not just when it's convenient. It's not about quantity anymore. It's about ease. I've stopped chasing relationships that require too much convincing that I matter, convincing that they care. Sometimes I miss the old day Sunday dinners crowded with voices, holiday parties, the buzz of a full house. But then I remember the noise, the pressure, the silent weight of keeping everyone happy. I don't miss that part. Now, I make soup in a quiet kitchen, fold laundry while the radio hums low, sit on the porch and wave to the mail carrier. It's enough. People come and go. Some leave quietly. Some leave with a bang. Some you outgrow. Some outgrow you. And some just fade, like evening light through an old curtain. It doesn't mean what you had wasn't real. It just means it's done. I don't need every seat at my table filled anymore. I need the ones who sit without needing me to explain why I'm quieter than usual. Who understand that love doesn't always look like big gestures, it looks like presence, consistency, and peace. At this age, I've stopped apologizing for letting go. I'm learning that part of growing older is knowing when to hold on gently and when to let something rest where it naturally ended. But even beyond relationships, what shifted most deeply was how I understood trust. 3. Learning to trust differently. There's a difference between being cautious and being closed off. I didn't always understand that. I used to trust easily. I wanted to believe the best in people, and for a long time I did. Maybe it was how I was raised, small town. Front doors left unlocked, neighbors dropping by with pie. We waved from our porches, lent sugar without asking questions. Trust wasn't a thing you thought about, it was just there. Part of the way life moved. But over the years, I learned that trust can crack. Sometimes it shatters. Not always in big, dramatic ways. Sometimes it's just a missed phone call when you needed someone most, or a quiet shift in someone's tone that you don't notice until it becomes permanent. There were people I would have sworn would never let me down. Some did anyway. Some didn't even realize they had. I don't carry anger about it now, just understanding. People are who they are, and time shows you that clearly if you're paying attention. These days, I don't hand my trust out so freely. I take my time. I listen more. I watch what people do, not just what they say. It doesn't mean I've become hard, just more careful. There's a neighbor down the street, a woman maybe in her 50s. She brings my trash bin up from the curb every Thursday morning without saying a word. The first time, I thought it was a fluke, but she's done it every week since. No fuss, just kindness. I trust her in a way I can't explain because she shows up, quietly, without asking for anything. I've learned that trust doesn't always come from shared history. Sometimes it's built in small, present moments. A gentle look, a steady hand, someone who remembers how you like your coffee. It's not about grand gestures, it's about being seen and accepted in your ordinary, everyday self. But trust also starts with yourself. That's the part I didn't get for a long time. I used to second guess everything, what I felt, what I thought, what I noticed in others. Now, I lean into it. If something feels off, I don't explain it away. If someone drains my peace, I step back without apology. It's not selfish, it's survival, but in a soft, quiet way. I still believe in the good in people, but I also believe in my right to walk away when something doesn't sit right. That balance has taken me a lifetime to find. I don't need to prove I'm forgiving by staying in places that hurt, and I don't need to feel guilty for trusting slowly. Sometimes, the deepest peace comes not from holding on, but from knowing when to hold back, not out of fear but out of love for your own well-being. That's not closing off. That's choosing what gets through the gate. And in learning to protect my trust, I began noticing just how much the world around me had changed. 4. The world doesn't feel the same anymore. The world outside my window moves faster than it used to. I sit in the same chair each morning, the one by the window with the faded cushion, coffee in hand, sunlight climbing slowly across the hardwood floor. I hear the birds. They are still around, but I can barely hear them over the noise of the day starting. Cars rush by, phones buzz, and even before 8, there's already a sense of urgency in the air. Everyone's in a hurry, chasing something. I'm not always sure what. It didn't used to feel this way. I remember when folks used to knock on each other's doors just to say hello. Back then, we knew the names of the people who lived 2 streets over. We shared pie on porches and helped carry groceries without thinking twice. The postman knew your dog's name, and if your kid scraped their knee, a neighbor was already there with a bandage before you could get outside. That world felt warmer, slower, maybe, but not lacking. Now everything feels thin. Conversations feel rushed, attention is divided, and it's hard to tell if anyone's really listening anymore. I see families together, each one staring down at a screen. Even the dinners that used to stretch out for hours now feel like obligations, something to schedule, not something to savor. I'm grateful for what technology lets me do. I can see my grandkids' faces even when they're states away. I can hear their laughter through a video call. But sometimes I miss the weight of a real hug, the feel of small arms wrapping around my neck, or the simple comfort of sitting next to someone in quiet. I try not to sound like someone clinging to the past, because I know the world keeps moving. It always has. But there's a difference between moving forward and losing touch. We used to value things like patience, presence, and time spent together with no agenda. Now it feels like everyone's distracted, like being busy is some kind of badge. But to me, the quiet has become the prize. There's a reason I turn my phone off sometimes. A reason I sit with a blanket draped over my knees, letting the afternoon pass without interruption. I don't need to scroll through the news every hour. I don't need to reply to every message right away. What I need, more often than not, is stillness. Something that doesn't demand anything from me. The world's not bad now, just different. It's louder, faster, more connected in some ways, but lonelier in others. I don't expect it to go back to what it was, but I do think there's still room for slowness, for softness, for choosing depth over noise. And so I make that choice every day, in little ways: a slower morning, a handwritten letter, a long walk around the block. That's how I keep hold of what still feels real. In a world that felt louder and less familiar, I found myself turning inward, and there, I discovered something unexpected about solitude. 5. The quiet strength of solitude. There's a difference between being alone and feeling lonely. It took me years to understand that. These days, I spend a lot of time by myself, not because no one's around, but because I've learned to enjoy my own company. I'll sit at the kitchen table in the morning, hands wrapped around a warm mug, watching the sunlight slide across the linoleum floor. The coffee's never as hot as it used to be, but it's enough. Sometimes, the only sound in the room is the ticking of the old wall clock and the distant hum of a neighbor's lawnmower. In my younger years, solitude scared me. I didn't like the quiet. I filled every space with people, plans, background noise. I thought if I kept busy enough, I wouldn't have time to feel alone. Now I understand I wasn't running from silence, I was running from myself. But that's changed. Now, I find peace in the stillness. There's something grounding about folding laundry while the dog naps at my feet, or reading a book with a blanket draped over my shoulders. The room dim except for the light from the window. No rush, no expectation, just being. I don't need constant company anymore. When my kids come to visit, I'm happy. I love their stories, the laughter, the energy. But I also love the quiet after they've gone, the slow return to my rhythm. I don't feel guilty for needing that space. I'm not turning away from a thirsting, turning inward, and there's value in that, too. Solitude has made room for reflection. I think about old times more often now, but not in a way that hurts. I remember the people I've lost, the moments I got wrong, the things I held onto too tightly. But I also think about the strength I found in letting go. Solitude has a way of showing you what you no longer need to carry. I used to think self-worth came from how many people wanted to be around you, how often your phone rang, how full your calendar looked. Now I know better. Some of the most meaningful moments in my life have happened in complete silence, sitting on the back porch with a cup of tea, watching the snow fall without saying a word, feeling the weight of a loved one's hand resting on mine long after they're gone. There's no pressure in solitude, no performance. It's the one space where I don't have to be anything for anyone. I'm just me. And that, finally, feels like enough. So no, I'm not lonely. I'm just quiet. I've carved out a life that fits me now. A little slower, a little softer, filled not with noise, but with meaning. And in that space, I found something I didn't know I was looking for. Peace that doesn't need to be proven. With that new comfort in being alone came a clearer understanding of why I no longer felt drawn to everyone or everything. 6. Choosing peace over presence. I used to be someone people could count on. Always there, always saying yes. If someone needed a ride, a hand, a favor, show up. I thought that was just who I was, the dependable one, the helper. And for a long time, it filled me with a kind of purpose. But looking back, I wonder how much of myself I gave away just trying to be what others needed. Not out of resentment, just reflection. These days, I avoid more than I attend. Invitations come in, and I sit with them for a while. Sometimes I say yes, but more often I don't. I don't explain anymore. I don't offer reasons. It's not because I don't care. It's because I've learned to care for myself in a way I didn't know how to before. There's a kind of quiet that settles in your bones when you stop pushing yourself into spaces that leave you drained. I feel it now, sitting in this old recliner, blanket across my lap, light from the window warming the side of my face. The coffee on the table has gone cold, but I don't mind. Outside, the neighbor's dog barks once and then stops. The world moves on, whether I join it or not, and that's fine by me. I used to feel guilty for needing space, guilty for stepping away from conversations that went nowhere, or from people who only called when they needed something. Now, I listen to that feeling, that tiredness, that tug in my chest that says, "You've given enough today." I've learned that choosing peace over presence isn't selfish. It's survival in a gentler form. I avoid people who bring noise, not just loud voices, but the kind of energy that's always about conflict, always about them. One, avoid places that feel performative, where everyone's pretending to be okay when clearly they're not. I spent too many years absorbing that, thinking it was my job to help hold everything together. Now I let go, not of love or kindness but of obligation, of the idea that being good means being available at all times. I keep a small circle, and even within that circle, I take my time. I'd rather sit in silence with someone who truly sees me than be surrounded by people who never ask how I really am. I'm not bitter. I'm not hiding. I'm just no longer willing to pour my energy into things that take more than they give. I've traded a full calendar for a quiet morning, an echoing room for a soft chair, and my own steady breath. At 70, peace is a choice I make daily, not because I've stopped needing people but because I've started needing myself a little more. And in that shift, I've found something that used to escape me, a stillness that feels like home. And I often wonder, am I the only one who feels this shift, or are others quietly making the same choices too? 7. Not a loss, but a shift. I used to wonder if something was wrong with me, if pulling back meant I was broken, somehow less loving, less kind, less human. But over time, I've come to understand it differently. It's not about shutting people out. It's about finding space to breathe. There's a quiet kind of truth in choosing solitude, not the lonely kind, but the kind that feels like a soft blanket on a cold morning. Familiar, steady, enough. In my younger years, I was everywhere. I said yes to every request, every dinner, every favor. I held on to relationships that wore me thin, thinking loyalty meant staying no matter what. I poured myself into being what others needed, even when I didn't have much left. And for a while, I thought that was love. But love, I've come to learn, doesn't always mean constant giving. Sometimes it means stepping back, Sometimes it's knowing when your heart needs rest. These days, I'm not chasing connection for the sake of being connected. I'm not trying to fit into rooms that don't feel right anymore. I walk slower now, not just in body, but in thought. I let the mornings stretch out, sipping coffee while the light moves across the counter. I wrap an old shawl around my shoulders and sit by the window, with the radio humming low in the background. And in that stillness, I feel more like myself than I ever did in a crowd. If you're in your 60s, 70s, maybe you've felt it too. That quiet shift, the pull inward, the need to protect the time and energy you've got left. It's not selfish, it's wise. You start to see how much noise you used to tolerate. How many conversations were just motion with no meaning. So you start choosing differently. Fewer people, slower moments, deeper breaths. Sometimes I miss what was. The big gatherings, the laughter that filled the house, the familiar voices that aren't here anymore. But I don't long for it in the way I used to. I honor it. I smile at the memory. And then I return to where I am now with fewer obligations, but more intention. With less pressure, but more peace. This life stage isn't about giving up. It's about refining, letting go of what no longer feels real, and holding close what does. There's a kind of freedom in that, in choosing to be still, in not apologizing for needing quiet, in showing up only when it feels true, not because it's expected. So, no, it's not a loss. It's just different now. I still love, still care, still hope, but I carry it all differently. Lighter, slower, closer to the heart. Whatever the reason, this stage of life has offered something I never expected, the freedom to live more truthfully, on my own terms. 8. A new kind of beginning. I don't see this part of life as an ending. Not anymore. It's quieter, yes. There's more stillness, more space between events. But there's also more clarity, more knowing. These days, I wake up slower. I let the light come through the window before I move. I wrap the same old cardigan around my shoulders, pour a cup of coffee, and sit by the kitchen window. There's comfort in starting the day that way. No rush, just the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the chair under me, and sometimes the soft chatter of birds outside. I used to think getting older meant fading out, becoming smaller, less needed, but that's not how it feels. If anything, I feel more solid now. Not louder, just more certain of what matters. I don't carry the same weight I used to. The pressure to prove something, to meet someone's expectations, to always do more. I've put that down. It's been replaced with a deeper sense of being okay just as I am. There's something beautiful about no longer chasing, about standing still and realizing there's nowhere you need to be but here. I don't need to fill every day with plans or people. Sometimes I just sit on the porch and watch the trees move. I listen to the wind. I let myself remember things not to dwell, but to feel grateful. A warm hand once held, a laugh that still echoes, a moment that passed but stayed in me somehow. This chapter is slower, but it's not dull. It's thoughtful. I spend more time with the people who bring ease, not noise. I say no without guilt. I let the phone ring if I don't feel like talking. I answer when I'm ready, and when I do, the conversations tend to be more real. No small talk, just simple truth. That's what I want now, is performance, more presence. I don't look ahead the way I used to. I don't need a 5-year plan. I don't count how many days I might have left. I focus on this one, on the morning light on the floor, on the weight of a blanket across my knees, on the smell of bread warming in the oven. These are the details that ground me now. What surprises me most is that I don't miss the chaos. I don't miss being in every room, saying yes to everything. I don't miss trying to be everything to everyone. There's peace in letting go of all that. At 70, I'm not winding down. I'm opening up to fewer things, maybe, but to the right ones. This part of life feels more honest, like I've finally cleared the noise and found the quiet I needed all along. It's not an ending. It's just a beginning I didn't see coming. And when I look at what remains, stripped of noise and expectation, I see not an ending but something quietly whole. What remains when the noise fades? What I've come to see is that life, in the end, isn't about how full your calendar is or how many people know your name. It's about the few moments that feel real, like the warmth of sunlight through the window, on a cold morning, or the steady weight of a hand that once held yours. It's in the sound of your own footsteps in an empty house and being okay with that silence. I used to think I had to hold on to every friendship, every obligation, every version of who I thought I should be. But now, I let more things go. Not because they didn't matter, but because they've done their part. They had their time. And I'm learning that peace isn't found in holding on. It's in knowing what to keep close. I've chosen quiet over chaos, meaning over motion. A simple breakfast at the kitchen table instead of running from one thing to the next. A slow walk down the sidewalk, waving to a neighbor instead of trying to stay ahead of time. There's a kind of truth that only shows up when things get quiet enough to hear it. And in this quieter life, I've found I still carry so much, just not in the same way. I carry people I've loved, lessons I've learned, and the quiet courage it took to let myself live differently. That's what remains when the noise fades. Not the numbers, not the noise, but the clarity of being right where you are, with less to prove and more to feel.